April 25th, 1185. Down there, far beneath the waves, another capital awaits us. They plunged into the fathomless deep. Alas, the spring winds of transience, in one brief instant, swept away the beauty of lovely blossom. The billows of a heartless fate swallowed his sovereign majesty. The Tale of the Heike. On the prow of his advancing warship, the Genji commander Yoshitsune looks on in horror and shouts, "No!" Before him, almost within his reach, he has just seen the Dowager Empress Lady Ni, the widow of the late Heike warlord Kiyomori, leap into the ocean to commit suicide. But as she jumped from the boat, she took with her a 6-year-old boy, her grandson, the young Emperor Antoku. Together, hand in hand, they leapt to a watery grave. Not only that, it is clear that she was also holding the sacred sword Kusanagi, one of the 3 priceless imperial treasures that the retired emperor, Go Shirakawa, has instructed Yoshitsune to recover at all costs. Within seconds, what appeared to be a glorious end to Yoshitsune's mission against the Heike has become a tragedy. "Get in the water, men!" Yoshitsune shouts. "Save the emperor and retrieve that sword!" A dozen of Yoshitsune's men leap into the water and desperately swim out to catch hold of the sinking figures before they vanish forever. But after scouring the waters, Yoshitsune's lieutenant Kajiwara comes up to him and says, "I'm afraid it is too late, my lord. The Lady Empress and the boy Emperor are gone, as is one of the imperial regalia, the imperial sword." Yoshitsune holds his head in his hands while his lieutenant looks at him without expression. "The only good news, my lord," Kajiwara continues, "is that one of the men retrieved the sacred jewel. It must have fallen from the Empress's robe as she hit the sea." Kajiwara hands Yoshitsune a box containing a small, curved jewel made of lustrous green jade that seems to radiate light from within. "Ah, Yasakani." Yoshitsune holds the jewel before him. Small consolation, though, for the loss of the Emperor and the sword. No sign of the sacred mirror?" Kajiwara shakes his head. Just then, Yoshitsune sees a Heike noblewoman on the Heike Emperor's boat who is rushing to the prow of the ship while carrying a wooden chest. "Who is that?" he says. Benkei gazes across. "It looks like it's Lord Shigehira's wife, Dainagon-nosuke." "And what is she carrying?" "Must be something important, my lord," Kajiwara says, "if she's desperate to make sure we don't have it." The 3 men watch as the noblewoman stands upon the side of the boat. Yoshitsune raises his bow and says, "No, not this time." He releases an arrow that arches through the sky and pins the woman's skirt to the vessel's side just as she is about to leap. She trips back and falls onto the deck, still holding the chest. Benkei smiles at his commander. "A great shot, my lord." He looks back at the Heike boat. "What is it, do you think? Could it be the mirror?" Yoshitsune nods slowly but then looks alarmed. "Tell the men not to open the chest." Benkei bellows across to the Genji men on the other boat, several of whom are now clambering aboard, but his voice is lost in the wind. On the Heike boat, 4 Genji warriors have now surrounded the Heike noblewoman, who has no choice but to surrender to her captors. One of the men wrestles the box from her hands and examines it. It is a finely decorated wooden chest of about 3 feet, secured with a thick chain. "Ah, why so keen to take this with you, my lady?" the man taunts the by now terrified Lady Dainagon. "Maybe we should claim this for ourselves, men." The lady, who the men have now tied to one of the ship's masts, glares at them. "You should not open it," she says. "Ah, why spoil our fun, my lady?" The man lifts his sword and smashes the chain that secures the casket's lock and opens the lid. He then reaches inside and lifts out a large, circular bronze object that appears to be many centuries old. The man gazes in wonderment at the object's surface, while Lady Dainagon forces herself to look away. The man smiles. "Ah, so this is Yata no Kagami," he says. "The heavenly mirror, forged in heaven and passed down from the goddess Amaterasu herself." The other men gaze in astonishment as the warrior leans closer to gaze into the mirror. But then they begin to back away from the man alarmed at what they now see. "What?" he demands. "Why do you retreat?" While the Genji men look on, terrified, the man looks back at himself in the mirror and recoils at what he sees. His own face, with blood seeping from his eyes. He lowers the mirror and turns to the others. "Men," he pleads, what is happening to me?" The man now feels a piercing pain inside his head. He senses the blood is now pouring from his eyes, his ears, and even from his mouth, and he holds his hands to his head in panic. He now stumbles from the box, running blindly past his comrades, screaming in pain, and runs straight into the side of the boat, where he topples over with a splash into the sea. By this point, Yoshitsune has reached the boat, and as he climbs aboard, he bellows at the men, "Close the lid!" The men, averting their eyes, hasten to replace the bronze mirror and secure the box. "And bind it securely," Yoshitsune orders. "You fools! No man may look upon the sacred mirror, except the Emperor." He notices the captured Heike lady Dynagon tied to a mast. She glares in defiance at the Genji commander, and in a quiet voice she says to him, "I did warn them." It is now 4 o'clock, and the Battle of Dannoura has turned decisively in favour of the Genji. The Heike fleet is being driven relentlessly towards the shore by the shift in the tide, and one by one the Heike nobles hurry to find some way to escape the oncoming Genji armada. Some pile into retreating boats, others leap into the water to take their own life. One of those who attempt suicide is the mother of the boy emperor, the lady Kenremonin. After witnessing her mother and child take their lives by drowning in the sea, Kenremonin has lost all hope and desperately tries to join them. She places rocks into the folds of her purple robe to weigh herself down and jumps into the water. But before she can descend, an observant Genji warrior manages to catch her long hair with a grappling hook and pulls the Empress to the surface. The loss of the Emperor and the Imperial treasures has by now struck panic among the Heike warriors, as well as the nobles. Now many of the samurai are leaping into the water, choosing to end their own lives rather than face the humiliation of being caught by their hated enemy. One by one, the Heike sons and grandsons of the great Lord Kiyomori enter the water. The brothers, Norimori and Tsunemori, arm in arm, dressed in full armour, fall to the ocean depths. So too, the younger lords, Sukemori, Arimori, Yukimori, all just teenagers, sink from sight. Within minutes, 5 of the Heike's nobles have ended their lives and have become food for the creatures of the sea. While many of his compatriots are taking this tragic course, the Heike's overall commander, Munemori, has other ideas, deciding that preserving his own life is the top priority. As he hurries to evacuate his command ship, a group of Heike men roughly shove past him and accidentally knock Munemori over the side of his boat and into the sea. After floundering around in the water, trying to keep afloat in his armour, he is eventually dragged alive onto a Genji ship. Now the Genji, for the first time ever, have managed to capture the leader of their rival Heike clan. The last remaining Heike general is now Lord Tomomori, the wisest of all the Heike brothers. But when he sees that his brother Munemori has been captured, he realizes there is now little chance of glory. But there is still time to make a last stand, and to make sure the Genji pay a heavy price for their victory. He calls on his mightiest warrior, a giant of a man, a hulking samurai by the name of Noritsune. The giant approaches him wearing heavy red armor and holding in one hand a long sword and in another an axe with a naked blade. When Tomomori sees the warrior's blood-stained weapons, he smiles. "I see you've been busy, Noritsune, but have you found yourself a worthy opponent yet?" "Not yet, my lord." "Then find yourself one on that boat." Tomomori points to the flagship leading the Genji attack. "You want me to take on their commander?" "Yes. If we can't grant my father's last wish by capturing the head of Yoritomo, we can at least take the life of his brother." The giant Noritsune grunts his acknowledgement and immediately sets out to attack the Genji advance fleet. He leaps from boat to boat, laying about the Genji warriors, swinging his axe and sword until finally he draws near the Genji command ship. "Yoshitsune!" he yells. "Behold Noritsune, the man who shot your friend Suginobu at Yashima. I'm sure you'll remember. I heard he died squealing like a pig." When he hears the warrior's taunt, Yoshitsune is incensed and rushes to take him on, but his retainer Benkei grabs him by the shoulders and urges him, "No, my lord, don't waste your life on that Heike scum. I'll deal with him." Yoshitsune resists, but Benkei urges him to the side of the boat, where he forces his commander to leap 20 feet onto the deck of a neighbouring ship. Benkei turns back now to the approaching Heike giant and roars out a challenge to him. Now the two massive warriors, the largest Genji against the mightiest Heike, face each other for the first and only time. With a fierce cry, they charge at each other, while other samurai stand back in fear for their lives. Again and again, Benkei and Noritsune strike at each other with thunderous blows. And finally, Benkei swipes with his long Naginata blade and it just catches the front of Noritsune's chest armor. For a moment, and for the first time in the battle, Noritsune is stunned. He loses his footing and finds himself tumbling over the side of the ship onto the deck of a smaller boat. After regaining his balance, Noritsune sees that a mass of Genji warriors are starting to head towards him. Realizing this is the end, he discards his sword and axe into the sea, removes his helmet and tosses it away, tears off his armor, loosens his wild hair, spreads his arms wide, and in a great voice cries out, "Any man who feels up to it, let him come forward. Fight with me and take me alive. I'd like to come to Kamakura and engage with Yoritomo. So come on, gentlemen, come and get me." Noritsune is now set upon by 3 of the strongest Genji warriors. He calmly moves forward, and as the first man comes at him, he kicks him into the sea. The next man, Noritsune clamps under his right arm. The third he grabs with his left hand and says, "Fine, you two are coming with me, on the road to death." And with that, he dives beneath the waves, taking the 2 Genji warriors with him. Above, on the Genji command ship, Benkei looks down to make sure his Heike rival is gone, then turns back to check on his lord Yoshitsune. When he sees that his commander is safe and sound on the neighbouring boat, he shouts out, "I see you haven't forgotten your Tengu training, my lord. That was quite a leap." "Ha," says Yoshitsune, 20 feet? That was nothing compared to how we fought at Gojo Bridge, Benkei." Meanwhile, the Heike general Tomomori, having just witnessed the death of the Heike's greatest samurai, realizes that time is now up. He vows to himself that he will not allow himself to be captured like his brothers Munimori and Shigehira. "I won't become a prize captive for the Genji to do with how they will," he thinks. So he dons a second layer of armor, grabs hold of the ship's anchor, and steps up to the prow of his boat. "I have seen enough," he says. "Time to die." He launches himself over the side of the boat. As his lifeless body descends to the seabed, the last hope of the Heike has finally been extinguished. It is not known for sure how many people died on the 25th of April, 1185, but there is no doubt about its outcome. According to the tale of the Heike, the whole sea was red with the banners and insignia that the Heike had torn off and cut away, while the white breakers that rolled up on the beach were dyed a scarlet colour. Unlike at Ichinotani or Yashima, there was no escape for the Heike that day. It was complete and utter destruction. Although some of their samurai did manage to escape, the leadership was shattered. All of the late Kiyomori's sons were now either dead or in the hands of the Genji. But despite his victory, it was not the complete achievement that Yoshitsune had yearned for. For one thing, the death of the boy emperor was an unexpected shock that would spread alarm across the nation. But perhaps more significant, the imperial sword, an ancient relic of immense significance that had been passed down from the gods, had been lost, taken to the bottom of the sea by the emperor's grandmother in her last act of defiance. The tale of the Heike recounts that the best women divers were summoned to dive for it. Holy monks were sent to the greatest temples and shrines to pray that it be recovered, but to no avail. The sword was never found, and, presumably even today, the remains of that priceless sword still lie on the seabed somewhere in the Straits of Shimonoseki, waiting to be rediscovered. The feats of heroism and moments of tragedy at Dannoura, Yoshitsune's leap between boats, the defiance of Noritsune, Tomomori clutching a ship's anchor as he descends to the seabed, have inspired many stories and legends over the years. Ghost stories have grown up of dead Heike warriors rising from the sea to attack any ship that passes through the Straits of Shimonoseki. Even today there is a type of crab that can be found in the local seas that came to be known as Heike Dani, or Heike crabs. The pattern on the shell resembles a samurai warrior's face, and the crabs are believed to contain the spirits of the drowned Heike warriors. The graves of several of the Heike lords and samurai who perished on that day can be found near the shore at the shrine, which is dedicated to the boy emperor Antoku. Beside the shrine are the graves of 7 samurai, 7 sons and grandsons of Kiyomori who all died at sea that day. Behind the shrine is the cemetery where the blind minstrel Hoichi is said to have played his biwa lute to placate the spirits of the Heike army, a story that we covered in the very first episode of this podcast series. And so, the great clash between the Genji and the Heike has come to an end. Within days of the battle, news of the victory reaches Yoshitsune's half-brother Lord Yoritomo in his capital of Kamakura. In just 5 years, Yoritomo has inspired the scattered Genji remnants to take on and defeat their most powerful rival clan. And yet, his mission is not yet complete. To achieve his dream of becoming commander of the nation, or shogun, he still needs to deal with 2 challenges. For although the Heike have been destroyed for now as a military force, members and supporters of the clan are still alive who could potentially present a threat in the future, and Yoritomo is determined to prevent any chance of the Heike rising again. But before that, he will first have to eliminate a more immediate threat to his authority. The victorious hero who is now his greatest rival, his own brother, Yoshitsune. In the next and final episode, Yoritomo learns of his brother's heroic victory at Dannoura and realizes he must act quickly if he is to retain any chance of becoming the nation's first shogun.